So the Apple event has been done and dusted, and of course we all saw the unboxings and reviews of the iPhone XS and the XS Max, and of course iPhone Day has already been over. So what is still there to talk about Apple? Well, they still had to release the iPhone XR. But the real question here is, what does the iPhone XR mean to Apple? Hey, what's up guys, South here from Rex Tech, back with another video. And today we're actually taking a look at the truth behind the iPhone XR and what does the iPhone XR really mean to Apple. Because it means different things to different people, but to Apple it actually means something more than what you think. So on September 12th, Apple announced the iPhone XS and XS Max, which were merely just an S upgrade, which only meant that there were going to be minor hardware changes, but no changes in terms of the design. So the iPhone XS and XS Max, all the reviews are out, and it's actually way faster than the older iPhones. There is much better GPU improvement, and of course the cameras now are actually way better than ever before. So the iPhone XS Max is a really great upgrade for any iPhone user, except for iPhone X users, since it's nothing but an S upgrade. So if you are a real Apple enthusiast who upgrades every year, you might not be into the XS or XS Max because it's the same design, only in either the same shape and size or a bigger size, and of course some improved hardware, and of course the most improved camera. So if you are a X user and you're looking to upgrade to an iPhone XS or XS Max, you can, but I highly recommend you guys from staying away from upgrading to the iPhone XS or the XS Max. So the new player in town that's coming around on October 26th is actually Apple's iPhone XR. So ever since last year where we saw smartphones coming out at $1,000 or $1,000 plus, there has been a secondary category added to the flagship category itself. So you have the regular flagship smartphones, which cost from $600 or even $700 to $800, $900. But then they are the ultra premium flagships, which cost from $900 to $1,000 to $1,500, around that price range. So yeah, there are new categories that have been derived ever since last year, and Apple has also been following up with the flagship and the ultra premium flagship ever since last year. So last year's flagship were the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, and this year's flagship is the iPhone XR, and the premium flagships being the iPhone XS Max and the XS. So let's answer the question of who is the iPhone XR for? So the iPhone XR is actually for the people who want the design and the looks of the iPhone X or XS, but in a cheaper form factor, because not a lot of people can afford a $1,000 flagship. So Apple opted for a nice compactly designed smartphone with of course some cost cuttings, yet still including some of the main and important features that Apple thinks is most required and most important. So the iPhone XR is for people who own very old flagships, which are including the iPhone 6s, 7, 8, or even older iPhones like the iPhone 6 or 5s models. So those iPhone owners are really recommended to have an upgrade to the iPhone XR, which actually costs the same amount as probably their previous smartphones. So for the same amount, you're actually getting a really new smartphone. And of course, Apple's also introducing a new program called the trade-in program, which allows you to trade in your old iPhone for a new one with a bit of minor cost reduction, but that's kind of expected due to depreciation in price of commodities. So the iPhone XR is recommended for those kind of people because you're getting most of every spec of the iPhone XS and XS Max with some minor cost cuts, which are of course the same camera software, Face ID hardware, the A12 Bionic 7nm chipset, the dual SIM support, wireless charging, and some of the design, which are the rear glass design and of course the front-facing notch design. So these are the features that are inherited from the iPhone XS, but of course there are features which Apple had to cut down in order to reduce the cost of the actual iPhone XR, and that is a smaller display, but it is actually bigger since it's a 6.1-inch display. It's an LCD panel. It has a pretty average size battery. It's bigger than the iPhone XS's battery, yet it's smaller than the iPhone XS Max's battery, but it still averages out at around 3000 milliamp hours. And of course it does carry a single rear facing camera, yet it includes the same camera software and of course portrait mode with the rear facing camera itself. And of course Apple has decided to go with the aluminum frame for the iPhone XR instead of the stainless steel one for cost reduction purposes. And of course Apple has also removed 3D touch from the iPhone XR as probably a cost reduction purpose, but they've also mentioned that instead of 3D touch, they've actually included haptic touch feedback, which is the thing that they use in their MacBooks. I've never used a MacBook and I don't probably know what a haptic feedback according to them is. It's not 3D touch, so it's something different. And of course, they've also gone with an IP67 water rating instead of an IP68 water resistance rating, which of course comes with the iPhone XS and XS Max. And of course, they also went with a pretty smaller form factor, so it's actually pretty compact. And one more thing, they've actually removed the headphone jack. Wait, no iPhone has the headphone jack. So these are what are included and excluded from the iPhone XS series. So this is what Apple is giving us with the iPhone XR. But after talking about all of this, they all seem like a pretty cheap and inexpensive thing to do. It should have been released way earlier than the iPhone XS and XS Max, taking the iPhone XS series to be released on the October month, whereas the iPhone XR should have been actually released on September. But why this big gap for the release of the iPhone XR? Since it actually seems to use a lot of low-end parts for the actual device. You know, they've gone from OLED to LCD with the XR, they're using aluminum frames, and they've only opted for a single rear-facing camera. Since these cost reductions are pretty easily available and Apple has the market for all these resources, they should have pushed out the iPhone XR earlier. But why have they failed to do that is the question here. So according to me, what I think the answer is reference with the smartphone market analysis of August 2018. So in August 2018, the analysis showed that Huawei beat Apple to the second place, with Samsung being at number 1 and later on Apple coming back to number 3 in the position. So let's take a small look at how Huawei took the second place and how Samsung is still managing to stay in the first place. Their Samsung Galaxy S series is pretty amazing. A lot of people buy their S series smartphones, but they are flagships. Not a lot of budget smartphone buyers would actually opt for a flagship because to them it's actually way expensive. But on the other hand, Samsung does not only offer flagship devices, they also offer budget devices like the Samsung A series, C series, and of course the J series, which are the main sellers in the markets of India and of course most of the East Asian parts of the world. But of course the A series is the most famous one as the budget Samsung device available from Samsung all over the world. So that's how Samsung manages to stay in the top first position. So how Huawei managed to come to second place from third place is actually not that big of a doubt, because actually Huawei has a sub-brand, Honor, which produces way more smartphones for the budget offering than Huawei ever does. Huawei produces 2 major smartphones for the year. They also produce a few budget offerings, but their sub-brand Honor actually produces way more. They produce a new smartphone almost every 2 months, which actually amaze the customers at their budget offerings. In India, their smartphone rates range from 10,000 to around 20,000 for the best smartphones they can offer. And if you convert that to USDs, it's like $120 to like $300 for their most best smartphone. So that's actually an amazing price range for most Indians to purchase a smartphone. So Apple, being at third place, actually wants to go to the first place, but they've actually got to first beat Huawei to second place and maintain their standpoint there and move on to the first place. Apple's strategy on going to the second place is the iPhone XR, and that's their answer to Huawei. And I believe that the iPhone XR is just a last-minute plan that they executed, and they immediately started resourcing the parts required for the iPhone XR, made a smartphone, and they showed us, here is the iPhone XR. It has all the amazing specifications and features of the iPhone XS and XS Max, but at a price point of $749. And that's basically a budget yet flagship offering from Apple. And they thought of this because they knew that this year we're gonna have an S upgrade. There's not gonna be any major design changes. There's only gonna be some minor hardware changes, and they knew that they were gonna lose a good amount of money just because not a lot of iPhone X users are gonna upgrade to the iPhone XS Max just because of some minor hardware changes. And if you look at Geekbench scores, which you probably shouldn't be looking at, but the scores of the iPhone XS and X are mostly similar, so there are no major changes there. So yeah, but what I think is that the iPhone XR is for people with older flagships, older than the iPhone X. The iPhone X users are not and should not probably upgrade this year, but users of the iPhone 7, 8, or 6s, 6, or even 5s are mostly recommended to upgrade to either the iPhone XS or the iPhone XR depending on their budget. And my expectations for the sales and what I believe is gonna happen is the iPhone XR is gonna outsell the iPhone XS and XS Max in so many ways, because of a few reasons. One, it's actually way cheaper than the iPhone XS's base model, which starts at $1,000. So number two is actually the iPhone XR is way better than the iPhone XS in terms of battery life, since the iPhone XR actually has a bigger battery than the iPhone XS. So that's there. Number three is that the iPhone XR has a huge number of color options available in the market. They have the product red version, they have a space gray version, which is basically black, they have a white version, a pearl white version, they have a coral color, which is basically pink or peach, you know, and you have a yellow color, you have a blue color. So you have 6 different color options available, and most probably a lot of people are gonna opt for the iPhone XR just because of the personalized colors that they offer. I just wish they had a green color, since I personally love a lot of green. Don't mind room color, I just love green a lot. So yeah, and just because of these 4 reasons and these 3 reasons, I think are the main reason why the iPhone XR might outsell the iPhone XS or XS Max. Now, I'd also like to talk about one more speculation that's actually going around about the iPhone XR, which is that the display of the iPhone XR is 720p and it's not upgraded to any higher specification, whereas the iPhone XS, XS Max have way better displays, they play back full HD video, and that's where I'm gonna stop you guys. I know you've all seen Lou's video from Unbox Therapy where he says the iPhone XR is depressing because it has a 720p liquid retina display. Yeah, I said it. That's what Apple said. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, yes, it has a 720p display. It's around 1300 something pixels by 800 something pixels, which of course, yes, is 720p, but in fact, it has a resolution of 326 pixels per inch. But hold on for a fact, the older iPhone 8, smaller one, the iPhone 7, the iPhone 6, and even the iPhone 6s, all these smaller display smartphones from previous years, which were flagships, also had 720p displays, which were lower at resolution than this. They all had 326 pixels per inch, yes, but they all had resolutions that were rating around 1200 something by 700 something resolution. In fact, I own an iPad mini 1st gen, which has stopped updating ever since iOS 9.3.5, which has, you know it, a 720p display at a resolution of 156 pixels per inch. That is a non-retina display according to Apple, whereas the 326 pixels per inch resolution is actually a retina display. So does my iPad mini play back 4K or a full HD video? My iPad mini can play back full HD video in its full HD glory. And of course, there is no distortion, no pixelating, or any sort of haze or softness that's in the video that I'm playing back on YouTube in full HD. It's actually way sharper and way crispier than you'd expect. Full HD video playback on a 720p display is actually really, really crisp. Now, of course, there are issues where you might not be able to play back full HD content like from Netflix or from Amazon Prime in full HD, rather you'd be able to play them back at 720p. Now, those are the only places where you might not be able to play back video in its full HD, or most people will call it 1080p glory. Other than that, YouTube would indefinitely support full HD playback. So you have no problem there. But of course, if you're using other streaming services, that's where it might, down the resolution. But of course, it's actually not that bad because it looks crisp, it looks sharp, and of course, it's the actual resolution that your display supports. So that's actually good. And people who can vouch for me are people who actually own a smaller version of last year's flagship. And this video is basically explaining what the iPhone XR means to the consumers and what the iPhone XR means to Apple. On a whole, to the consumers, for the iPhone X users, not a big upgrade. Don't upgrade this year. Wait for next year. You got a better flagship coming, I hope. But for iPhone users of previous generations like the 8, 7, 6S, 6, or even 5S users, this is a major upgrade. Go ahead, buy it right now. Maybe pre-order it right now. It's an amazing smartphone. I hope to get my hands on one though. But it's, on a whole, an amazing smartphone that you should probably get right now. But what it means to Apple is they're actually going to get to the 2nd place pretty soon enough, as soon as the iPhone XR actually releases. So yeah, that's what it actually means for Apple. And of course, that's it. That wraps up for this video. Hope you liked this pretty long video. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe, follow me on all social media links linked down in the video description. Support me on Patreon, and I'll see you guys later.